Welcome, everyone. This is the Rocket Science Podcast. I'm Rodrigo Nascimento, Rocket.Chat CTO and co-founder, and your host on this episode. Here we talk about specific features, changes, or news on the Rocket.Chat universe, and you have the opportunity to go deep in the details while you're talking to who is involved on those exciting things. I have with me today the Apps Engine team members, Douglas Gubert, Shiqi, and Thassio Victor. Welcome, guys.
Hello, welcome everyone.
Hello.
Awesome to have you here. So thank you guys to give us your time to talk about those two exciting things. And the subjects for today are the Apps Engine TypeScript compiler removal and the brand new permission system. And I remember when we started developing the Apps Engine and we decided to go with TypeScript. Bradley was developing this at that time and decided to start with TypeScript to develop it using TypeScript and to enforce people to develop applications using TypeScript as well. Because one of the main reasons, of course, beyond the good parts of TypeScript to enforce some things would be like to use the compiler to get more information from the applications, like the interfaces that they were implementing. So you could start using that even for the permission system that the other subject we cover today. So on that time, I guess that the whole idea that Bradley got with this compiler inside the application was to be able to evaluate the code on the installation time and get all that information saved on the database and be able to use that extra information from the compiler. That's pretty nice. So with that topic in mind, like the TypeScript compiler, why are we removing this? What are the reasons behind this change and how it would affect the future of the Apps Engine? That's my first question for you guys.
All right, so the first thing will be to remove this burden of compiling things inside the Rocket.Chat server, because after all, it only has to execute apps and not deal with compilation and like issuing errors when the compile process fails. So by removing the compiler from the Apps Engine, we remove like the memory footprint inside the Rocket.Chat server, because we don't have to have the TypeScript loaded inside the server. We also remove the package footprint, because we don't have to have this package installed in the Apps Engine. We shorten the startup time of Rocket.Chat server itself, because every time we have to start up the server, all the apps that are installed have to be recompiled and reloaded. So like we remove this process of recompile everything altogether and just load everything that is installed. And yeah, we had a pretty great startup time now that we removed this compilation process from the startup. And yeah, also we allow the developer to use whatever TypeScript version it likes and use the latest version, and we don't like limit to the version of TypeScript that we configured in the Apps Engine, because now that the user can develop with any version of TypeScript, it can use, for example, like annotations or any other new stuff that comes out, and we will just have to deal with the compiled version after all. So we don't have to limit the developer in this sake. And yeah, I think those are the immediate things that happen. And also, this is the first step to allowing developers to add NPM packages as dependencies of their own apps. And this is a thing to the future, but this is the first step towards it. And this is pretty great.
Awesome. As far as I remember, we were discussing about this some time ago, and having the compiler inside the Rocket.Chat was kind of forcing us to make breaking changes when we were, thinking to allow new versions of the TypeScript to be used, right? So, because you have many apps on the App Store, and some of them were using 3 dot something. I don't remember the versions of the TypeScript right now, but like the other was using 4 dot something, and they are not compatible. They were breaking change between the versions, and we could not support both. Otherwise, we need to have both versions of the compiler inside the Rocket.Chat and start increasing, or we stop accepting applications that were built for 3.x for new versions of Rocket.Chat. They're accepting only 4, and people would need to rewrite those applications to new versions of TypeScript. So that's not the case anymore, right?
Yeah, that's not the case anymore. This is like one of those things that was kind of like bothering us as well, because we were running TypeScript version 2.9, right? And like one of there is even one feature that's missing from there, that is like the optional chaining. Like we didn't have access to it, but even though like on the Rocket.Chat repo, it is already available, because like the improvements, now you're using TypeScript over there as well, right? So and then like there's so much stuff we were missing out because of that. So yeah, this was like one of the biggest things from the removal of the compiler, right? But then I think it's important to note that like we removed the compiler from the runtime, but we are still supporting TypeScript, right? So when you generate a new app, it's still going to generate TypeScript files, TypeScript code. You're still going to have IntelliSense if your editor supports it.
Yeah. That would be my other question. Like, how is the compilation working now? Where? Like, who is compiling this code to JavaScript now? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Go. Yes. Do you guys want to go ahead?
Okay. So right now we are dealing with the compilation at the CLI tool that we use to package apps and deploy to servers and even submit to the marketplace. So before the removal of the compiler, we were packaging the TypeScript, zipping it, and sending it to the server, and the compilation happens there. Right now, when we try to package the app, the compilation step goes right in there. Like it tries to get the correct version of TypeScript you are using to compile everything correctly. And that's where the things are happening now, like in the user's computer, and using the power that the user's box has. And yeah, that's where things are happening.
Great. Awesome. And I saw that we changed some things on the marketplace to support that as well, right? So they are running some compilations to ensure that the versions that the users sent compiled are correct, right? That's extra thing that we are working to ensure security side, let's say, like ensure that the user is not providing, because as far as I remember, when we were discussing that, we evaluate TypeScript. One of the reasons behind we get the TypeScript on our side for us to review the code and see if the user is not doing anything bad with that code that we've installed inside the Rocket.Chat. So we are still receiving that TypeScript right on our side to be able to review them. So as far as I remember, we were talking about compiling again on our side on that our cloud marketplace there to ensure that the compiled version from the user is correct. If it's not sending the TypeScript one code and the compiled version another code that's maybe malicious in some way. So is that already going there? It's already happening, this validation process?
Yep, it's already happening. We actually when submitting an app to the marketplace, you actually submit the TypeScript code, the source code. As you said, like for us to be able to properly review what's going on in there, it's easier to read than the compiled version. And then also because so that we can maintain backwards compatibility, right? So previous versions of Rocket.Chat that still had the compiler, they will still get the TypeScript version when they download the app from the marketplace, and the newer versions of Rocket.Chat that do not have the compiler anymore, they will download the compiled version from the marketplace. So yeah, this is what's going on already over there.
Awesome, makes sense. So, well, moving on to the next topic. I guess we cover everything on this one already. So, what's that new permission system like regarding this subject? Can you explain what is that? What are the reasons behind?
Sure. So the permission system, I'm sure, like we're all used to accepting permissions, like when we are installing an app on our cell phones, or even some other integrations with OAuth for the developers here. We usually have this kind of the platform asks us, oh, hey, this app, this integration, it's going to have access to your public info. It's going to, I don't know, maybe be able to post things on your behalf in the platform. It's going to be able to act on your behalf in the platform. And this is a step towards transparency and privacy concerns when using Rocket.Chat apps, right? Because as of now, whenever an admin downloads and installs an app, it's actually not very clear what is going on for them. And when we have this permission system in place, it will be possible to show the admins what exact permissions the app is requesting, and what information the app will have access to when it's running.
I'll say. Cool. It's kind of similar to ask permissions to access location or to access camera in browser or to access even for people that are developing for mobile. As far as I remember, again, like when I did, you need to ask permissions to use camera geolocation as well. So it's kind of following the same path, right? Cool. And exactly. Can you explain how it will look like which new APIs it to implement and how the developers will set up those permissions?
Hello. So the permission system actually consists of three components. So one is the app side. For the apps developer, they need to declare the permissions in the app.json file. Mm-hmm. So we have an app.json file that stores the metadata of the app. So with the introduction of the permission system, the app developers need to declare the permissions they require into the permissions. And the second part is the apps engine side. So the apps engine read the storage item, the apps storage item from the database, and read the apps metadata and read the permissions the app developed required. They declared in the permissions property. So we get a list of permissions the app developer the app required and compare them with our permission validators. So and there's the third part is the Rocket.Chat side. So the Rocket.Chat admins we will render the permissions of the apps and display the permissions to the admins, so admins could know what permissions the app required while they installing the app or upgraded the app. So this is consists of the three components. And for the new implemented APIs, we don't provide any new APIs in this stage, since in this stage we don't provide any API that in the code, so the app could use that API to request the permission dynamically. But we provide the static permissions, so they need to declare the permissions in the app.json file statically. So this is the current stage, but we do have future plans to provide some new APIs for them to request permissions dynamically. But this is not the current consideration. So yeah, and the details of the we want to talk about the details of the apps engine side. So in the apps engine side, we actually provide a set of permission checkers, aka the permission validators for the permissions. So the connection between the apps engine and the Rocket.Chat is the bridge methods. We have a set of bridge methods that call the API from the Rocket.Chat. So this is the connection. So we have so we have a proxy layer for these checkers. We create a proxy that wraps the permission checkers, while the app calls some bridge methods. We check the app's permissions first with the respective permission validator, and when the app has the permission, we pass it, and if the app doesn't have the permission, we reject it and throw an arrow in the terminal. That's the internal workings of it.
Awesome.
So
I see.
Yeah.
So just recapping, like to see if I understood correctly, like as this first version, the permissions will be static. So you define what I want to access on the package.json or app.json file there. So I list what I want to have access to, and those APIs that probably will be new APIs. We don't have APIs using this permission system yet because the permission system doesn't exist. So those new APIs then will only be available for the developer if they requested that permission on app.json, right? So if the developer tries to use that API that he didn't ask for permission on app.json before, it will return an error. Is that right? And just curious, it will be a specific API where I can check if the permission was asked or given, or it's just like a case I need to remember that I asked that permission on the app.json to not get an error when calling that API. Because I understand that probably makes more sense on the second phase where guys were talking about dynamically asking permissions. And then I don't know if the permission was asked before or not, right? May not make sense now on this first stage. What do you think?
Yep. In the current implementation, we will simply throw an arrow if the app permissions, the permissions are not listed in the app.json file. But with the later implementation, we will try to create a dynamic request form and display that form, that model to the admin. So admin could see where I need to approve or reject this permission, and update this permission list in the database so the app has a permissions key in their database. So if the app the admins approve this permission or reject this permission, this permission will be changed. Status will be changed accordingly. So yeah, but
Can be
this
checked.
Yep.
Awesome.
But currently, this check will simply return false if there's the permission is not listed in the app.json file.
Yeah, because it's not even possible to reject the permission, right? You're just a list of what the developer is asking to have access. Cool. So how that, since we are asking or not asking now, just showing that to the admins this first stage, but how that would be the interaction between the administrators and users with this new permissions?
Well, for the user, this whole permission system will be transparent. They will be using the apps as they do, because we don't, the piece that interacts with the user will be the optional permissions that we'll be having in the future. And the only part that it is interactive with some type of user is when the admin is installing the app, and this little window will list all the permissions that the apps require. Just like when we do in any marketplace, when we try to install an app and it shows our the terms and conditions to install it. We also have it at Rocket.Chat. We will also show like the permissions, the basic permissions right now that the apps require to function properly. And as of right now, in the current implementation and the sketches that we have this condition of accepting or not accepting the installation based on the list. We don't have right now this markings of specific permissions. So like I won't authorize these apps to, I don't know, making HTTP requests, but I will authorize the app to send messages and storing things at the app's storage, for example. Like we don't have this. We have a all or nothing policy, but in the future we'll be able to select specific permissions and features with the optional permissions, and that's the interaction that we are having right now, and yeah.
Cool. Sorry. And I guess that's interesting. Before dogs start talking, I want to know from you guys, and as Thassio mentioned, we didn't mention before, it's something that we are still developing and some things planning still, right? So I'd like to know better what's the stage these things right now.
We're working on the implementation on the apps engine side, actively working on that, going through the review stage as well. Like it's very complicated, right, to introduce this kind of a mechanism to this working system already. And we should be starting also the Rocket.Chat side soon enough, so that we can show the permissions, the permission list that we've been talking about. One thing that is very, I think, like two things that are interesting to mention is like it's difficult to introduce this now because we don't want to break the compatibilities with the apps that are currently published, right? So we need to keep those apps that do not even know about these permissions. We need to keep them running, and so like this is one of the concerns that we need to keep close in our radar during the development, and it's something we need to revisit every now and then. Like, okay, we have all these mechanisms here, but how do we keep those older apps still functioning without requesting those kind of permissions. And another interesting thing that is going through the development, like, is actually how we guard these the breach methods that we call them, like how do we put this this barrier between the apps engine and Rocket.Chat with this permission manager. It's we would like it to be more, how can I say this, intuitive on how to work on it from our side. But like right now we're trying to figure out the best way on how to, like, say, okay, this kind of method will require this specific permission in a way that it is clear to both to us and to app developers. Like, okay, if you wanna use this method, if you wanna, I don't know, read messages, then you need the permission for message reading. And this one's been quite complicated for us to nail down right.
Imagine. I can see that. And probably you're wanting to have all the APIs that we already have implemented to start requesting permissions in the future as well, right? Not breaking, as you mentioned. So that's a challenge to see, or at least a decision to see if you're going to break or not break compatibility, right? Because it's all since you have the permission system, or will you have the permission system soon? I hope that would be nice to have all the existing APIs already asking for permissions as well. But it's not something you're probably expecting for first versions. Only new APIs, right? And maybe version 2 of the apps engine, or a new class or something like that for people to start using APIs that are now all based on permissions, right, in the future.
Yeah.
So on top of that, like, how we are going to improve that in the future? What are the plans to expand this permission system? Like, you talk about things that we are planning to implement now, but do you have ideas of things more ahead in the future?
Sure. One of the things that Thassio and Shiqi may already mentioned as well is like that optional permission, right? So that permissions that are not core to the functionality of the app, that the developers can require to provide some extra or some bonus functionality, and like those would be like similar to how, let's say, on the browser, a website only asks for permission for your camera when it's about to use it, right? So it would be like a similar flow. Like when you are about to use a specific feature, we would then you would be able to check if the permission is given, and if it's not, you request this permission somehow in order to properly use the feature. Another thing that is important and that we've realized on the early stages of the designing of this feature is we have actually two classes of permissions, right? So one of them is like what we are calling admin permissions. So permissions that access server resources, let's say. So permissions to allow you to register /commands, permissions that allow you to register new API endpoints for your apps. So those are like invisible somehow to the users, but yet you need to be explicit when asking for those, and tell the administrators, okay, I'm going to be using this kind of those resources on your server. You need to accept that. And the other class of permissions is the user permission. So this would be like permission to send a message on the user's behalf, permission to have access to other informations on that user. Like, so let's say that on a first moment the app would only be able to access username, ID, and nickname of the user. But then if it wants more information, like, I don't know, let's say email, bio, or any other further information from the user that goes more into the privacy concerns, then it would need to request this specific information from the user. Similar, again, to the OAuth flow, but then in this time, not only for the administration, not only for the installation time, but then when you want to, when the end user wants to interact with the app in a certain way, the app will be able to require, okay, you want this feature? Good, but then I'm going to need access to your email. I'm going to need access to your to any third-party information or extra information that is there. So those are like the two big things that are on our roadmap for the future. We still don't know exactly how they look like, and we don't have a specific time frame for that. But they're definitely like those things that are must-haves for the future of the project. I don't know, like, if you guys want to jump in. Maybe I forgot something.
I think everything is in there.
Cool, awesome. That sounds pretty nice. Well, I think that that's all the questions I had on those two topics. So I'll give you guys time to say end words. Like Douglas Gubert is our leader of the Apps Engine, located here in Brazil. I think this is nice to have a distributed team around the world. So Doug, what are our last words?
Well, I guess let's kind of use the some latest features from GitHub to make a kind of a hook here. With the introduction of the new discussions on GitHub, we're planning to like bring more of these debates and discussions and internal things to the community. So if you're interested on the Apps Engine, on how it works, internals, or how to develop new features, please start the conversations there, and we will probably be starting some conversation there as well, so that we can get the community involved on how we can start developing and maintaining some features. So yeah, this is something that looks like an exciting thing, and we're hiring. Just a good reminder, now.
You're always.
Yeah. So if you want to be part of the team, just I think we have the jobs page. Rodrigo might have the exact address of the page, but
I think that's jobs.rocket.chat. Yeah. Something like that. Jobs.rocket.chat, baby.
Fair enough.
Cool. Thank you, Doug. And thank you, Thassio, as well. Thassio is one of the engineers of the Apps Engine, located here in Brazil as well. So Thassio, do you want to say last words?
Yeah, actually, I just want to reinforce the keep the channel open for communication by always trying to remember the community that we are open for it on our forums, and also the apps channel on the open server, and also use the dark mode on GitHub is really awesome.
It's pretty nice. I was excited about that. Like waiting for too long. I was using some extensions on Chrome that wasn't that good, but long-waited feature on GitHub. That's cool. So and thank you, Shiqi. Shiqi is another engineering from the Apps Engine from China. That's pretty nice. Do you want to say some last words, Shiqi?
Yeah. So Rocket.Chat is an open source company that hires employees from all over the world. So if you're interested in our company and our culture, so please contact with us, and we hopefully will be work together.
That's great. Thank you. And I guess it's nice to mention that Thassio mentioned about the open server. That's the address is open.rocket.chat. We have a lot of channels there where we interact with the community and the users, so you can test the Rocket.Chat there and talk to us. So see you there. So thank you all for listening to this podcast. It's available as video on YouTube and audio on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and others. And thanks for the Apps Engine team to make this possible. See you all on the next episode. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.